So, Captain, you've had a really an amazing life, an amazing story of some having some major setbacks in life, including being in a front-on head collision and having an acquired brain injury, and it essentially at the time, basically, your whole life just fell apart after that
Like
accident.
that
Yeah,
in an instant.
in an instant, it was just all taken away, and most people would just basically give up and not recover from something like that, and yet you did. And not only you did that, you actually used it as an opportunity to reinvent yourself and actually pursue one of your biggest dreams that you had,
Hmm.
uh, uh, that you never fulfilled before. And it was after having that extreme that accident and almost losing your life that then caused you to actually go after your dream. So tell us a bit about, tell us the whole story, from beginning to end, how that all unfolded.
Sure. So I was a fairly well-known photographer in the wine industry. I lived in on a 22,000 acre working cattle ranch west of Lake Sonoma in Sonoma County. It's the largest privately held ranch. I had three horses out there. It was like heaven, and that's what I had built out of my work with Landmark. That was the kind of life I had. I got paid like, 1,500, 2,000 bucks a day to wander around the wine country and take pictures of people
Wow.
making wine and, wineries, winemakers, people harvesting wine. So it was this great job that I got paid really well for.
That sounds pretty, actually, that's a pretty high, pretty good pay. I mean, damn, like a lot of
Yeah.
people they'd be happy to make that per week, and you were making that per day.
Yeah. I didn't work every day,
Yeah.
but I had this wonderful life. I rode my horses every day. This
Wow.
22,000 acre. So living on this ranch was a creation, out of me participating in the Landmark Forum, the advanced course, becoming an introduction leader.
And
Um,
around what year was this?
1998, 99,
Okay.
I believe. I'm not really good at chronological order. It was
Mm-hmm.
about 20 years ago, as far as I can tell. I could look it up somehow.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Um, and I was driving home to this wonderful life where I had my horses. I rode every day. I was free to, go see my daughter whenever I wanted. I had this great life. And on my way home one night from a shoot, I had all my cameras and lighting equipment in the back of my Ford Explorer.
Mm-hmm.
And I was way out in the country. This ranch was way out in the country. And I was at the bottom of Warm Springs Dam when this 17-year-old kid and his buddy came down the hill, and I could tell they were going too fast to take the turn at the bottom. So I pulled off to the side of the road, and they missed the turn and ended up off the road and hit me head on.
And oh, you actually pulled over to the
I
side of
had
the road
actually
to
tried to
give
get
them
out,
room,
yes,
and they
to give
still
them room, and
and
they
they
still
ended up.
managed to hit me head on. And we were out in the middle of nowhere. I had a cell phone. I was unconscious. It knocked me unconscious. When I came to, I saw it happening. I saw the lights coming at me.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of prayed that it was two motorcycles, but it ended up being a small truck. And I
Mm-hmm.
slammed on my brakes. Next thing I know, I'm waking up in a car that's steaming and crumpled. So the first thing when I woke up was, checking to see if I was alive. I was. I could move. Next thing was, how do I get out of this car? I had to kick the door out to get it to open.
Mm-hmm.
And then, they're there. I'm there with them. He's like, oh, my arm, my arm, my arm, my arm. Okay, I'm not going to touch it. Then I'm going to call, 911. Oh, don't call, don't call. I said, well, you should have thought about that before you got drunk. And I need doctor's care, and so do you. So I'm calling. Well, my phone wouldn't work. I had to walk down the street to get it to finally find a signal. I got it. I called 911, and they put me on hold for like 15 minutes. I'm sitting there freezing, going in and out of consciousness on hold by 911.
Oh,
Finally, she gets on. I explain everything, and before she'll send somebody, she has to have a cross street. And I'm trying to explain, ma'am, We're in the middle of nowhere. There
There
is
is.
no cross street. There's a cross street 4 miles away, but there's none here. Tell them I'm under the Warm Springs Dam and they'll know exactly where I am. Oh no, I have to have it. So I'm arguing and going in and out of the cross street. Just somewhere under the. He didn't. About 20, 15 minutes later, there's a helicopter hovering over the cross street.
Uh-huh.
I can see it across the valley. So I got
Yeah.
out, I had a flashlight. I started flashing SOS, and he must have seen it because all of a sudden he flies over,
Wow, you
lights
actually
up.
okay, you actually know SOS. It's funny, a lot of
Well, it's on the
people.
phone. It's on the phone. It's built into the light.
Oh,
There's
it's
a setting you can set it.
okay.
So, yes.
That sounds impressive though. It's like I
Yeah.
started flashing SOS. So, like,
Right.
people these
Oh,
days
dot
like,
dash, dot dot, dot dot. Yeah.
that's a
So
good thing that
anyway,
I'll remember to put a note that have an SOS app on my phone so that I could
yes.
flash SOS with my camera light.
If
That's a
yeah.
good tip. Thank you for that tip.
All right.
Could
So
save
he
your life
saw it. They
someday.
flew over. I'm down the road trying to make the call. They light up the two cars, the accident, and all of a sudden the highway patrol, the ambulance, and the fire department show up, go right by me to the cars. So I now have to walk back up to the cars. I get there like, who are you? I'm like, I'm the guy driving that one. Oh my God, sit down, take. And the highway patrol keeps going, what do you do? I said, I'm a photographer. He goes, no, why are you so strong? I'm like, dude, I don't feel very strong at all. Did you see your steering wheel? Did you see your steering wheel? I'm like, what about my steering wheel? You bent it. I've been doing this 30 years. I never saw anybody do that. That's what saved your life. Why are you so strong? Why are you so strong? I figured out months later why I could do that was I kayaked a lot.
Oh.
So my upper arms right here were very strong from
Oh,
kayaking.
wow. Yeah.
And that and my will to live gave me the strength to bend the steering wheel and push it into the dash away from my chest. Because in a high speed head on like that without an airbag,
Hmm.
the seatbelt can't stop you quick enough and you crush your chest on the steering wheel.
Oh, okay. So,
It won't protect you.
right. So you saw them coming. You
Yeah.
saw them
And I just
coming.
went, no,
No.
no. So anyway, that gave me an acquired brain injury. In that instant, that whole life of photographer, horseback riding, cowboy was gone in an instant,
Wow.
completely gone. And I was suffering from a brain injury, so I was like barely in my body, dazed, still in shock. The hospital didn't do proper. They didn't put a brace on me. They didn't X-ray my neck. They didn't do a whole bunch of stuff. They just sent me home. And as it turned out, it really, really damaged my neck. Took the curve out of my neck. It trapped my spinal cord. It was pretty dangerous. So once I
Wow.
got over that initial shock, there were several questions that I asked myself. The first was, had I died, what would I regret? Was there anything I would have regretted had I died that night?
Yeah.
And the first thing was, yeah, I would have regretted watching my daughters grow up, being there for my daughters.
You would have regretted not seeing your daughters grow up.
Yeah, again, not being there for them
Yeah.
and not having, so that was there.
At the time of
What
the
also
accident, what
became
was
aware was,
at the time of the accident, what was your relationship with your daughters?
oh, excellent. We talked all the time, a lot of love. Everything was complete. That's what the next thing that I looked at was that because of my working in the distinctions of landmark education or landmark worldwide, the forum, and its courses, that my life, I was complete with everybody. My
Wow.
parents knew I loved them. I had no anger, no hostility, no blame to my parents. There was nothing but love. And my mom was dead at that point, but my dad was still alive. And so I was, that's pretty cool. No
Wow.
regrets. So the next question was, had I died, what dream hadn't I fulfilled on? And it was like right there, boom. My parents moved to the Caribbean when I was 16 to St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Islands. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where I'd grown up on boats, but mainly power boats.
Okay.
The Caribbean, I discovered sailing, and I just loved it. And I worked down there as a crew on somebody else's sailing boat. really got in love with it. And the last time I had been there, I said to myself when I left, I'm not coming back until I'm the captain of the boat. So, being down there on boats with captains that were drunk and making bad decisions, I just couldn't do it anymore. So I had said to myself, next time you come back, you're going to be a captain. So after this accident, I started looking to see, like, that really excited me. Like, that was a dream I wanted to fulfill. So I used Landmark's programs. I called Harry Rosenberg, the head of Landmark, told him my situation and asked him if he would sponsor me redoing the curriculum for living. And he said yes. He knew me and he knows how much I assisted. And he said, yeah. So I took my life on. I took what happened on. I took rebuilding. First I had to get that I no longer had that life. I couldn't ride a horse. I couldn't live on the ranch because I couldn't chop wood. I couldn't open the gates. My whole life had
Oh.
altered. So the first thing was to just come to terms with that. I can't ride horses anymore. I've ridden horses my whole life. It's like my life. I
And
can't
and,
do
and you
that
said you
anymore.
couldn't do it because of the back the spinal injury.
Spinal and the brain injury. The brain could not take any shaking.
I see.
Riding's a lot about bouncing.
Yeah, I get
Boom,
that.
boom, boom. Yeah. So I couldn't do that, and I still haven't from there. Say I've never been around them, but I don't ride. It's too dangerous given the injuries that I have in my spinal cord.
Got that.
But I recreated that from nothing. And I got complete with that's what happened. What happened was I got hit by a drunk driver and I don't have the same capabilities that I have had.
Got that.
So,
And then what
that,
about your photography?
well, at that point, because of the brain damage I bent the steering wheel with my arm. So it tore, ripped, and pulled every muscle in my shoulders, my back. I took all that damage, all that impact right through my arms. So all this part got really damaged. So I couldn't hold cameras up. I couldn't carry equipment. And what I found out was
Uh,
that my brain, I almost ruined a very important photography event at an event because my brain wasn't working as well as it used to. I had the camera set at a wrong setting. And luckily I caught it before I had the film. This was back in the film days.
huh.
So I caught it before I developed the film and was able to salvage it. But I realized that I no longer had the reliability, count on ability that I used to have, that I could easily make big mistakes.
Right, because when doing photography, it's all about the little fine details, and there's so many little settings, and
Yeah,
you could, yeah, one little thing can be off, and it could totally ruin the image,
yeah.
or
And when
not
you're
even take
doing
the picture.
events that
Yeah, or
can't
you
be
make, yeah,
recreated,
yeah, and you
you
make
know,
an error. Yeah, you could easily make an error. I have this. I have my own experience. I used to film weddings myself,
uh-huh.
and I recall I've filmed hundreds of weddings, but I can recall one or two where there was a major error that occurred, and I had the camera, and at the time used a digital tape. Plus, I had a hard drive backup, and I recall just as the first dance was starting, the the tape mechanism jammed,
Ooh,
but the hard drive still said it was recording, and but it was already happening, and I was like, okay, I at least have the backup. But then when I went to play it back, the file was corrupted.
oh no.
So the tape failed and the
And the
backup
backup failed.
failed.
Yeah,
It had a double failure,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. So
And
that's why I couldn't do it. My brain wasn't up to it.
yeah.
And having redesigned myself twice, I knew that I could now use the resources of the state of California to get some more training and do something else. So, I took on with the state of California's rehab division. I
Uh-huh.
enrolled them. They weren't going to do this, but I enrolled them into me being rehabbed as a captain.
Interesting.
They didn't want me to work independently. Their deal was I had to work for somebody else for at least 3 years. But they really didn't want to do that. And I enrolled them. I said, look, I did this, when I was a builder and became a photographer, that was workers' comp. And I successfully did that career for 23 years based on me, you giving me workers' comp, giving me the ability to rehab myself. So I promise you, I give you my word, I will do it. And I've a proven track record of doing that. So she said, okay, I'll give you a chance. And so the state of California paid for me to go to school. To become a captain, you have to pass 5 tests
Uh-huh.
and you have to document sea time. So I started volunteering on different boats. I started getting the sea time. I started studying sailing navigation, rules of the road. But they actually paid for me to go to school to prepare me to take these 5 tests.
That's
And
funny.
I took,
It's funny. I've never heard of anyone getting the state of California to pay for them to get their captain's license. I think I've been doing some sailing myself, as you know, and there's different certification classes to take, and it never even occurred to me that that was even a possibility to have.
I don't think
It
it
was
was
always out of
until
my
I
pocket.
enrolled.
Yeah, I know. I did. That's amazing.
I think I was the first.
I think
And
you're
it
the
took,
first, maybe the
yeah.
only, and the first and the only. I don't know.
Well, what was great about it is that, I really got that woman went out on a limb for me and trusted me. And
Mhm.
years later, like probably 5 or 6 years later, I was awarded the Jefferson Award for community service with what I did with kids and boats. And I went immediately after receiving that, I went and showed it to her and thanked her and let her know that that came out of her trusting me and believing my
Wow.
word and investing in me, that this was part hers. And she was moved to tears that, that's what
Wow.
she contributed to. I wouldn't have done that had she not given me that opportunity.
Yeah, she made that possible. Wow.
Yeah. So the next guy might have an easier time. But I made it work, and I've learned that I've been able to do that. I went from carpenter, what did it go from? Yeah, from carpenter to photographer, photographer to captain.
That's a good progression.
Yeah,
Actually, I'm just curious. But being a captain, isn't there? Did you have to like be pulling lines and winch handles, and all
yeah.
that
I
kind of
mean,
stuff?
I couldn't have done that in the very, very beginning, but I used rehab. I went to rehab. I had massages. I got my body working again.
Uh huh.
And until last year, the last couple of years, did the thing in my neck deteriorate so that it was giving me more problems.
Mm-hmm.
But that part wasn't a problem. I was always careful of my position, and get younger people to do it whenever possible.
Okay. And okay, so let's go a little bit more into so you did a brilliant job of enrolling this woman to into agreeing to have you fund with workers comp, fund your rehabilitation and your classes to become a captain. And then once you did that, and then tell us a little bit more about the program you started working with kids.
Yeah, well, as part of the time to get what they call sea time.
Uh-huh.
To become a captain, you have to document X amount of time on a boat of the size you want a captain.
And what size
So
of
if
boat
you,
were you trying to captain?
I wanted to go for 100-ton um, near coastal license and a master, not a 6-pack, which is, an uninspected passenger vessel.
Not referring to an abs of steel, right? No.
Right. No, it's actually the Coast Guard doesn't like that. It's a captain of an uninspected passenger vessel.
Okay.
You can only take 6 passengers, no matter what the size of the boat. You can only captain to 6 people.
I see.
The license I have is limited by the Coast Guard. I can captain any boat to the limit of passengers the Coast Guard allows. So they do a stability test. You know, this boat can handle 50, 200-pound Americans. If they're all on one side of the boat, it's not going to flip over. You know, they make that determination. Does
That
that
makes
make any
sense.
sense?
That makes perfect sense. Yeah, if everyone decides, hey, let's all go to the right, let's all go to the port side of the boat and all lean out on the port side of the boat, it's not going to cause the whole boat to
Slip.
to slip and yeah, lean way over and people start falling out.
Yeah. And they even tell you how much sail you can carry. You know, like some of the boats that I captain, if I have over 20 guests, I can't have the mizzen up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are different rules that they have. But so I chose that I wanted, you know, go for the higher ton. So the boat I spent a lot of time on was a 50-footer. I also had a friend who was taking all the OCSC, Olympus Circle Sailing Club courses, and he was fairly wealthy and he could afford to charter boats, but he didn't have anybody to go out with. And I wasn't working, so I volunteered. Take me.
Right, and we
And
get some hours on
yeah,
the sea.
exactly. Hours on, and then he would share what they were teaching him in the course. So it's actually getting the courses for free.
Oh
And
wow.
he was smart and paid attention, and it was really great. So I just slowly built up the time, the whole time. So I had an acquired brain injury. I had a short-term memory. To get my license was really difficult. I had to get things from short-term to long-term memory. And one of the tests, rules of the road, you have to get a 98.
That's
They don't
pretty
mess
high.
around.
That's very
98. You
high.
got to know the rules of the road. If you're
That's a
driving a
bit.
boat, you got to know the rules.
It's much higher than getting a driver's license. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
it's not like 70%, 98%.
Wow.
So how do you do that with brain damage? You know, how do you do that with a short-term memory loss? Is you do it over and 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 over again. And then at
Wow.
the course that was training me, fluorescent lights were really bad on my brain, the flickering would set.
Oh.
So I enrolled the course leader into letting me ask the whole class, did they mind if I brought like 6 incandescent lamps? So we could turn the fluorescent off and light the thing with my lamps, and they all agreed. So that's how I dealt with that. You know, I just didn't stop. And that all came from the landmark training. You know, I couldn't have done any of that if I had not really come to terms with what I lost.
Well, could you maybe let's take just a moment to little detour and tell us a little bit about what kind of training that you did receive just prior to your accident, because it sounds from my understanding is that training really put you into an optimal position to be able to handle that situation that someone else that didn't had that training,
Yeah.
going through the same experience you did, they would have had a completely different outcome.
Yeah.
And so tell us a little bit more about what was the training you actually got prior to your accident.
So the training I received that was the most valuable in me dealing with this, you know, traumatic occurrence in my life, this head-on car crash with a drunk driver that like in a second wiped out the whole life that I had,
Yeah.
was the landmark forum. And also, you know, I had done the advanced course, and there's self-expression and leadership course, and their wisdom course. And what I got, the training had me able to see that this is what happened. What happened is a kid driving a car hit me at a high rate of speed. What happened is I had an acquired brain injury. What happened is I can't do certain things I used to be able to do. So the training gave me the ability to not be a victim, to actually say, okay, I don't have those abilities anymore. That doesn't mean anything. And to become complete with, okay, I can't ride horses anymore. Now what?
Yeah.
And it really had me not be a victim. There's a lot of agreement. Oh, you got hit by a drunk driver. Poor you. Oh my God. How did, you know, I could have easily used it and milked it and been a victim in my life. I chose not to be. And part of that's my training. I was also an introduction leader. for a landmark. But it gave me the ability to just break apart the story I had around being hit by a drunk driver and, what happened. What happened is car hit me, my head, my brain slammed into my skull, and it caused injuries. What happened is I don't have the same abilities that I did. What happened is I've lost my short-term memory and my executive functions right now. That's just what's so. And I actually got to be okay with that and choose that. Like, I have no way to reverse it. I can't go back
Right.
in time. There's nothing I could do about it. I could feel sorry. I could, like that. One way I dealt with this, I gave myself 5-minute pity parties. Like once a day, I
Oh,
would give
interesting.
myself 5 minutes and really feel sorry for myself. Like really, oh,
Okay.
like I can't ride anymore. I can't live in the country. I can't do this. I can't lift. I can't that. I can't think. I can't remember. Poor me, poor me. Oh, it's horrible. It's horrible. Alarm would go off. Thank you for sharing. Now what?
Wow, that's a really great strategy. I've never heard of someone say that. I mean, I've heard of that. It's like, okay, give yourself a little bit of time to just, wallow in your misery for a little bit and then say, okay, that's enough. But it sounds like you actually put a structure to it. You actually said, okay,
I
just
put a
to
timer on it.
timer. And you said you did that for 5 minutes a day. You're like, okay, I give
Yeah,
myself 5 minutes
yeah.
a day to have a pity
Not
party.
every day, but if I was feeling, if I
Feeling
was
it?
fighting going down that tunnel,
Uh-huh.
I say, okay, just let yourself feel sorry for yourself. Get it out. 5 minutes. That's
Wow.
what you get. At the end of that, now what? Now what? Who do you want to be now?
That's an excellent strategy. Thank you for that. That's a really excellent strategy because a lot of people, yeah, and myself included, things were just everything went to hell. It lost everything that we thought you had, and then dreams being dreams basically being something happens, and suddenly that dream is just vanishes. The dream you
Yeah,
had,
yeah,
and it's very difficult going through that, and it's so easy and so tempting to fall into that victim mentality and be in a permanent pity party, and you keep inviting everybody to join your pity party, and
exactly.
some people are
Exactly.
interested in joining because they're like, hey, I've got
They
horrible
just want to share their pity party with you.
yeah, let's all be miserable together. Yeah,
My pity party's better, worse than yours.
let's celebrate our misery together.
Yeah, that's a lot how communication goes these days.
Yeah. So what? Okay. What?
And
What else did you do to prevent people from, like, when people would come up to you and be like, "Oh, poor you, poor you." How did you respond in those situations? Because it's so easy to accept that pity, And what did
I
you
just,
do?
yeah.
Yeah. What did you do
Well,
to reframe it?
I would just say, listen, I got it. Thanks for being concerned. But how can I make what happened wrong? Because right now I have a life I love.
Uh huh.
I get paid to drive really big, expensive $1 million sailboats in the Caribbean. I get to turn on to a whole new excitement about the ocean and animals and whales. I just have this great life. So how can I make anything that brought me to this wrong?
No, I see that now, but I'm saying, it's because of the way you didn't make it wrong that led you to transform your life and to, as the expression goes, turn lemons into lemonade. You know,
Well, it's all choice.
yeah.
What kind of life? If I sit there feeling sorry for myself, being a victim, that
Hmm.
gives me a certain kind of life. I'm not into that kind of life. I don't want to sit around being, a ball of complaints, whining and crying that the world didn't turn out the way I wanted. I'm not
Yeah.
into that. It's a waste of my time. And it's really, it's a choice. Once you get that you have a choice,
Hmm.
why would I want to be a victim moaning and groaning when I could be alive and vibrant and having my dream come true?
Exactly.
Easy choice. And the other thing I would say is that I have an environment, I have a community of people around me that call me to be bigger than myself.
Okay.
They
That
call
was,
me
yeah.
to be much bigger than I know myself to be.
So that's really, I think that's definitely a key to, if, would you say then, after something occurs in which you might be considered you were victimized in some way, that one way to counteract the effects of getting pulled into that mindset is to make sure that you're surrounded by people who are going to see you much bigger. And
Yeah, and you tell them I'm not a victim. If you see me acting like one, tell me. Tell me I'm doing it. Bust me. You're being a victim. Stop it.
yeah,
Not like it's wrong, but I've said I give up the right to do that. I chose to not be a victim, and then I enroll my community to hold me to that. Starts with me giving my word to myself that I'm not a victim.
got
And
that.
it was kind of hard because how I got my money. So I decided not to sue the family. He was 17 years old. He had no license. He took the car without his parents knowing it. Got, wiped out drunk, 2 times the legal limit. He was 2 times the legal limit when he hit me. No, that was 2 hours after he hit me. It did it again. I'm going to accept that call this time because it's that same number. So hold on one sec, okay?
Okay.
Hello? 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 Whoever it is, next time they're getting blocked. Okay. They didn't answer.
All right. You were saying?
So, building me choosing, I gave my word to myself that I am not a victim. And it became difficult because the money, the way I got paid, I didn't sue them. I didn't try to get money and make it hard on his family.
Uh-huh.
And it turned out I was at College of Marin, and one of the people there said, there's this thing called California Victims Assistance. And it's to help people who have been the victim of a violent crime, a felony.
Oh.
And I got the number and I acted immediately. I didn't wait till the next day. I acted that day. And when I called, the lady goes, honey, you are one lucky boy. And I'm like, why? And she said, because had you called tomorrow, you wouldn't qualify. Today was the last day for you to call and qualify for victims assistance. And you do qualify, and we're going to pay for your medical and your lost wages and your rehab.
Wow.
Last day made the biggest difference in how the next 2 years went. But I acted quickly. I didn't procrastinate,
There is a cost of procrastination.
Yeah. And they paid for me the doctors that I couldn't afford. They gave me, because I made good money as a photographer, I got the highest amount of, pay that they could give. And it made my whole world different, because I didn't have to worry about money and the medical bills at that point. So it made,
Wow.
it was like saved my life.
And you also simultaneously were able to not have that experience completely ruin the life of the 17-year-old as well. I mean, obviously he probably got in trouble, but it ended up being.
No, he got in trouble. I didn't take the money out of. I could have gotten their house,
No,
stuff like that.
Well, that's huge. I mean, well, that's big. That's really huge. I mean, that could have been, and it's like someone else in your same position might have done the same. Might have done that.
Yeah.
Tried
I
to
don't
take.
think they got it. I've talked to people who knew them.
Mhm.
The kid didn't get it at all, and I'm not sure the parents even got it. The gift that I gave them by not suing them.
Yeah, no, yeah, you could have taken them for everything, and wow.
And I heard he was in another drunk driving accident,
Oh, jeez.
so he's headed down that tunnel. But not my problem. But it was, so the to limitations was doctors told me, oh, you can't talk to talking to more than 2 or 3 people is hard. So I took on being an ILP coach and then a head coach and then an ILP introduction leaders program.
Introduction. Yeah, and the ILP stands for Introduction Leaders Program.
Right.
Yeah.
And I took on actually being trained to be the classroom leader for that. And
That I find that really amazing that given your circumstances that you took on uh, such a such a role.
rigorous,
Yeah, rigorous,
challenging,
challenging,
getting
you
squeezed
know.
through a little hole.
Exactly. Like most other people will be like, I'm not even going to even attempt to be back into this program, let alone take on the lead of the being the lead of that. I mean, that is saying something. Like, I mean, what really drove you to do that?
I wanted to see where I'd end up. I didn't take their word for it. I didn't want to settle for what my limitations were. I wanted to push the envelope, find out how far I could go. I talked to 300 people. I didn't disappear, freak out, and end up in a hospital.
Mm-hmm.
It was fine, because the training is being out there, like being out there with them, not stuck in my head like,
Yeah.
and, I had to be responsible for it, especially as a leader, um, so that everyone around me knew that if you gave me something to do and you gave me one thing to do, I was pretty reliable. If you gave me two things to do and I didn't write it down, one of them would disappear, sometimes both. So that whenever I had to do something, they gave me the time to make a list.
Okay. Make a
That's
list.
being responsible. My brain doesn't work where I can retain it. I need to write it down. That's being responsible
Got that.
for my limitation.
Okay.
So, it was a challenge. It was a real challenge, but using this technology, not being in my head, being out there, over there with you, it got bigger and bigger and bigger. My abilities got more and more and more. There's still things, if I have too many particles, like right now being in the TMLP, Team Management Leadership Program, um, I'm dealing with a lot of little particles, like 18 WhatsApp things and 12 texts and 14 this.
Yeah.
And I noticed the other day that I'm starting to drop things out. So what there is for me is just be responsible on certain things. Tell people, call me and remind me.
Okay.
Rules
That's a
will
good
help.
point.
Set an alarm. That's why I asked you yesterday. Want us to call you 10 minutes before? Those are structures for fulfillment.
Yeah. It sounds to me that one of the things I really got from what you just shared was that the importance and value in finding out what your own limits are and actually testing those limits. And a lot of people already assume what their limits are
Mm-hmm.
and then just artificially stop at a
So they
certain
have their
point.
own limits, and then when doctors start telling you you have a limit, people tend to believe it. I don't.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, let's see.
It's I what I really got from what you shared is that in order to truly know what your limit is, you actually have to
Push it.
push it and see where the limit actually lies.
Yeah.
Because until you
And
actually experience it, you don't actually know. Just because someone else says there's a limit,
yeah,
it doesn't mean that's your limit. And just
yeah.
because you think you have a certain limit doesn't actually mean that's your limit. Until you've actually had the firsthand experience of that limit, you don't actually
Take
know
me
what the
to
limit
the
is.
part where the brain breaks down. It's like, okay, that was the limit.
Yeah.
That's as far as I could go today. Only today. That doesn't mean forever.
Yeah.
It's like
I mean,
continually pushing it, continually, continually. Because the brain's incredible. It finds workarounds. My brain found workarounds around the damaged areas. Took
yeah.
it a while,
Yeah.
but it learned how to get around them.
Yeah. I mean, you hear it all the time. I mean, there's people that, they lost their sight and now their brain has a workaround that it optimizes their hearing and touch
Yeah,
to compensate.
yeah,
To,
it's a fantastic thing, the brain.
yeah. And then in terms of limits, I mean, like many years ago, I did a water fast one time and I wanted to see what my limit was how long can I go without eating food? And I discovered
Mhm.
I could go for just under, I went for about 29 days,
Wow.
and but now I have that personal knowledge now
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
it's really empowering because, there's this sense of, okay, if I was ever in any situation where suddenly all the food supply was cut off, I know for a fact I can make it for about a month
Yeah.
and not, I wouldn't begin to worry until it's approaching a month.
Yeah.
Whereas other people, as soon as 12 hours goes by, they're going to
Oh
start
my
freaking
God.
out.
Yeah.
Like yeah, it's like I'll just be like, I'm just getting calm at 12 hours. Be like, okay, this is fine. And there's something really valuable in
Uh,
knowing your own limitations, but knowing the
yeah.
real limitations, not the made up ones.
Yeah. Well, and I wouldn't even reinforce that they're limitations because they were just in that last time you tried them.
That's true. It might be just your limitation now, but then you're like, okay, that was my limitation now, but maybe because I pushed it to that limit, it's now not my limit anymore. That was just
Uh-huh.
my limit for today. That's where my limit is now, like lifting a weight. It's like, okay, I maxed out on that weight, but now I'm now you just got a little stronger, so you can now push it a little farther the next time around.
Yeah. I'm getting all these weird calls. Can you hold on 1 second?
Okay.
Oh, I let it go. Sorry. The only reason I'm checking is I do have a call in to Jerry later in charge of TMLP.
Okay, got that.
And when I get numbers like that I don't recognize, I think it could be him.
Understood.
And if it's him, he'll leave a voice message and I'll call back. So one of the things with my brain damage was I kept pushing the limits. I took 5 tests. I got a 99 on rules of the road. I did it.
For your sailing
Yeah,
test, you mean?
yes, for my captain's license.
Wow.
Master's, it's actually called a master's license. But I just pushed and pushed and pushed. So fast forward, 10, 15 years of this brain damage and building on, pushing, pushing, pushing. I ended up to get my 200-ton all oceans license. I had to pass a celestial navigation test. And
So
that's spherical trigonometry. Like not the light thing, the real deal.
wow, using this
Spherical trigonometry.
that's
Well,
basically
they don't teach you,
using the stars to navigate.
yeah, to find out where you are on the planet.
Wow.
And it was the most difficult thing I've ever learned with my brain the way it is, ever, ever, ever. And I passed the test. It took everything I had, everything, to pass that test. It's like an 8-10 hour test. And I
The,
passed it.
the test was
Barely,
8 to
but I
10
passed it.
hours. Wow.
So that's when I declared, okay, brain, you're healed. You can pass a spherical trigonometry test. And I'm a high school dropout. I didn't do all the
Oh, forgot to
college
mention
stuff.
that part.
Yeah.
Jeez.
I have 4 years of college credits, but not matriculated. I just took what I wanted. And I'm a high school dropout without a GED. I wrote an accredited college, a letter and told them why I dropped out of high school and why I wanted to go to their college, and they accepted me.
You are amazing. You are definitely an example of someone who's able to carve their own path.
Hmm.
And even though there's certain rules that are generally put in place, that you've demonstrated a capacity to be able to bend those rules when needed, and where someone else would see that rule and be like, well, you can't,
Yeah.
you can't do that, and you're
Yeah,
like,
I'm
well,
a
why
pretty
not?
unreasonable.
Yeah.
I
So
can
you
make unreasonable requests. Accept me to your college as a high school dropout. You want me?
Oh my God, that is
They did.
awesome. Yeah, that totally blows my mind. I never, it's just like, I can't think. I was like, wow, that doesn't make any sense. How can you do that? And yet you pulled that off. It's like,
I just
what,
wrote a letter.
wow. Sometimes it just, yeah, I hear what you're saying. A lot of people, they think that there's a limitation there, but sounds to me that what I'm getting from you is that everything is negotiable.
It is. I lived in India for 2.5 years. There is no fixed price anywhere in India. It's all negotiation. Barter. 12 rupees, no 10 rupees, no 8 rupees, no 12.
Well, yeah,
There's no fixed price.
right. Actually, they find it. I understand it's find it offensive if you don't negotiate hard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like a whole art. It's fun.
Right. So, okay, well, this has been an awesome interview, and I would like to just ask you, what would you say is your top three uh, top three lessons or advice that you'd have to give to someone who's currently had their dreams destroyed, had their life taken away, the life that they know it. You know, their marriage, their marriage family maybe has totally fallen apart. Their business is blown up. They suffered a major injury and now they can't do what they used to do, and they're
Uh-huh.
having to reevaluate their whole life. You know, what would you say to them? What would be the best three pieces of advice you'd give to them?
Take 100% responsibility that life occurs like you say it does. If you say you're a victim, if you say this is horrible, if you say, oh my, poor me, I can't ride a horse anymore, poor me, that's how life occurs. Life occurs how you say it is. If you say that, create the context, like I had this and I lost that, but now I have a whole new opportunity to build a whole new life. What am I going to build? That's better than sitting there, oh, I can't do this anymore, feeling sorry for yourself. So, take 100% responsibility to create your life. It's speaking, creating, and actions. The second thing I would say is if it fell apart, look to see where you're out of integrity. Nothing works when you're out of integrity. People don't get that. We all want to blame someone else. So it's all, I'm that way because of they did it to me, or they fired me. It's all pointing the finger at someone else. It's not saying I'm responsible. But that's not a blame. That's not a fault. That's a gift. That's like I'm all powerful. I can
Yeah.
change what's going on over here. I can't change what's going on over there. I can transform my view. I can transform a lot of things here. I can't make you do that.
Got that.
So I would say, the thing is, life is what you say it is. If you say it's a horrible and it's a challenge and I can't do it, then that's how it occurs. You actually create your language. Very careful, what your language is. If my language is poor me, then that's how your life is. For me. If your life says, hey, what's next? What do I want to do next? What do I want to create? And just choose your limitations. There's nothing you can do about it. I can't do anything about my brain damage. I can't go back and stop that kid from drinking that night.
Yeah.
I have what I have. So what I look for is what gold did it give me?
What gold did it give you?
Yeah, like gold. What, nuggets of gold. What valuable information did I get out of this? I got one that I can be unstoppable, right? I got two that I can deal with any situation that comes at me.
Literally.
Literally.
Yeah.
Even if it's a 2,000-pound car.
Well, I bring back up to, you were saying integrity, and where you're out of integrity. Say someone who's in a similar situation where they were just driving home and they get hit. How would they be out of integrity? How would they be out of integrity in a situation like that?
They still have agreements to pay bills. They still have agreements to do all the things that they have agreements to, that they've given their word to. Mm-hmm. If you just let that run away and don't deal with it, then you're out of integrity.
I see.
If you owe a bill, and this is what I was talking to you about, and what people don't see is they get all this mass of out of integrities. I owe this bill, I owe that bill, I owe this person, I haven't called that person, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. It becomes this overwhelming mass.
Yeah.
And they shut down and don't do anything. And they have it like they have to complete it all to be back in integrity. They have to pay every bill they have. That's not what it is. Integrity is you contact everyone you owe money to and you make a new plan. You acknowledge, I broke my word. I didn't pay you the money I said I would. I'll pay it, but I can pay $1 a week. Will
I
you
see.
accept that dollar a week payment? They say, yes, you're back in integrity as long as you pay the dollar a week. You're back in integrity.
Oh, okay.
You go to all the people you owe money to and you get a plan.
That's brilliant. Yeah.
And you don't do it with excuses. You say, I didn't pay the money, period. That's what I'm training you,
That
wanted
yeah.
to train
Don't
you in.
add story. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
it's not
don't
adding a
make
story to it.
excuses. Don't, you didn't keep your word, period. End of story. That's what happened. It's not right. It's not wrong. It's just what's so. I didn't keep my word. But then you got to put things in that have that not keep happening.
And how do you do that?
You take actions correlate to you seeing that. So you calling everybody on team and you calling and thanking Gene for being really straight with you on the phone call last night.
Or actually, let me back up for a second. I want to
Yeah,
make
we
sure
don't
we
want
don't.
that.
Yeah, let's keep
Yeah.
this like
Okay.
a clean
Yes.
interview
Okay.
for
Okay.
between.
So
Yeah.
how you do that? Ask me the question again.
Okay. So how do you do that?
How do I do what?
Oh, okay. Sorry.
To be specific.
All right. How do you put those structures in place to make sure that you maintain you see how things what you need to do in order to get things back in integrity, and then but then you said putting structures in place. How do you put those? How do you decide what structures and what does that mean exactly? Putting
Okay,
structures in
so
place.
it starts with you saying to yourself that you're a person of your word. You make that declaration to yourself. I'm a person of my word. My word is like what happens. My word is my word. And I
Got
give
that.
it to you. I give my word to myself that I'm a person of my word. By doing that, you then, every time you don't do what you say, you lessen not only your listening of yourself, who you are for yourself diminishes, and also the listening other people have for you diminishes. So the structure is that you give that word to yourself, and then every time you notice you're not, you clean it up. You tell that person, you go to that person. You tell one on yourself. You clean it up. I didn't call when I said I would. What was the impact on you?
Mm-hmm.
What do you need to say to have that be totally complete? Is there anything else you need to say? Just till everything's been said that person needs to say. The other structures are you start getting with what's so. Do you have a list of every place you owe money? Do you have a place where it's late? Do you have a list of, persons I need to talk to? That's just you got to get what's so.
Right. So put it someplace to put it in existence where you could clearly see this is the way it is, and then you can one by one are able to cross things off the list
Yeah.
as you clean things up, as you renegotiate a payment structure, a payment plan with someone, you know, get back in communication
Yeah.
with someone that you
Call
maybe
someone who said you were going to call, right?
yeah that you blew off some appointment, or or something with someone that have that conversation with them that you just continuously ask them anything else to the point where they've gotten everything off their chest and that they feel fully heard and they feel fully gotten of what the impact was on them. And
And
that's
they
only
get that you're the cause of that you're taking 100% responsibility that you caused that.
okay. Got that. And then what's one final thing? What's one final point that you'd like to share with the listeners right now?
You're the source. You're the source of your life and how it occurs. Context is, decisive. How you speak it, how you see it, the point of view you have about a world, the point of view you have about yourself. until you can actually get those and then take actions consistent with you being who you say you are. Does that compute?
Yeah.
Like, mainly we just react. But when you say, this is who I am, and you have your actions and your speaking line up with that, then that becomes your life.
Okay, I get okay. What I just heard you say was instead of instead of behaving instead of acting from a reactionary place,
Mm-hmm.
act based on who you say you're going to be. You're basically more of like an identity place. It just be act and behave in alignment with the identity that you've declared who you to yourself to be, and not be just responding automatically to
Yeah,
whatever outside is causing you to behave a certain way.
yeah,
Because now the world is just pushing you in any which way direction.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you become a victim. You're a victim to the outside world. You're not creating it. And I would say that it's not your identity, but it's more like a possibility, who you say you are.
Mm-hmm.
Identity is kind of like sometimes a fixed thing.
Well, I mean,
Like,
there could be identity like, identity is I'm a person who is responsible, like those
yeah,
kind of things.
we just don't want to create ourselves like a chair or a car or a brick wall. We a
Flexible.
lot of times talk about things like they have substance. We talk a lot about, oh, I'm going to work on that. We don't get it's a conversation that I have a choice every time it comes out of this mouth. I have a choice what comes out. We act like that just happens. It's this chair. It is that way. It's not a
Right.
conversation that I'm the owner of.
Yeah, I just remember when you said I'm going to work on that. It reminded me of, and you said object. It's almost like we're treating ourselves as like
Yeah,
like a car, like some car that, yeah, we need to take it in for maintenance. We're going to go work
yeah.
on
I'm
it.
going to
Yeah,
tune the carburetor this week.
tinker around on it.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, and then I get that it's being, yeah, not going through your life like a ship without a rudder,
yeah,
and just allowing, actually being someone who's able to set the course and destination in their life, and the current may change, be pushing in a different direction. The wind starts blowing in a different way, and a lot of people go through their lives without setting a very clear course and then making adjustments
yeah.
with their
That's what life
rudder and
is. That's what sailing
setting
is.
their sails and having to
It's
make
just,
adjustments in
yeah,
order to stay on course.
yeah, it's a series of adjustments. Adjustment of sail, power, everything to get from point A to point B.
Yeah, and not just
But you know
drifting.
where you're going. You're not just wandering about.
Right, wherever the currents are going, wherever the wind is
Right,
blowing, and
right.
then next thing you know, and a lot of people end up just crashing onto the rocks of the
Yeah,
shore in
yeah,
the complete opposite direction of where they thought
yeah,
they wanted to go.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I would add, when things fall apart, you don't have to, but being generous with yourself, forgiving yourself that you got to that place, being responsible, seeing who you were that happened,
Mm-hmm.
but okay, I'm not going to be that. Like seeing how did I got, like I didn't pay this bill, then I didn't pay this bill, then I got interest on this bill, and it snowballed.
Yeah.
But you can either make yourself wrong for that. I was an asshole. I was bad. I was wrong. Or you can say, oh, that's what I did. I'm going to go clean that up. I'm going to go call that person. I was an asshole. I'm sorry. You can take actions to have it be complete and to stop going down that tunnel. Did that make any sense?
Yeah, I mean, we'll elaborate just a little bit more about, you said, being generous to yourself. Basically,
Yeah,
not
part
just
of what
beating
we do
yourself
is,
up is what you're saying.
yeah, people, here's what I notice. If something happens, somebody does something that has a bad result, and then instead of just getting, I did that and taking responsibility, cleaning it up, and they can't do it, and I'm not enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable, I'm not, this whole story.
Yeah.
They use it to stop. They use it to reinforce and beat themselves up about some negative thing they've made up about themselves.
I guess
Their evidence gatherers are about that.
I'm also hearing that the being generous is also in the form of being generous in your listening for yourself, in the sense of being generous in seeing yourself as capable of being a much more powerful, decisive individual, and that you're capable of a lot more. And so part of that generosity, saying, hey, I see you to be this big individual, and that you're bigger than this. You don't need to
Yeah.
stay in this place.
And
You're not a victim. You're actually a very powerful person who completely has the full capabilities of getting yourself out of this situation, cleaning up every one of these messes, and
yeah,
turning this ship around.
might take you, you know what transfer and progress is? Here. You know how long it takes a ship to turn?
Well, I guess it depends on the size of the ship and the how
A long way. A
what the
big
winds
ship
are. Yeah,
has a lot of momentum.
yeah.
It has a lot of momentum. Can you see that?
Move it over just a little bit. Oh, there we go. I see.
It's just how you calculate how long it takes a long ship to turn around. So it's going to take, time.
Yeah,
We think, oh, I wanted to fix tomorrow. No, you take steps consistent with that new possibility of being in integrity. Every day you take steps towards that. You do what's necessary. You make lists. You see what's so, and then you take steps. And over time, you turn that ship around, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, they're giving me credit cards.
yeah. I mean, well, it's not like this ship didn't go off course very quickly either. It all,
No, it's got a
yeah.
lot of momentum going that way.
It took time for it to go off course, and it's going to
Yeah,
take some time. It's going to take some time for it to get back on course.
yeah.
Yeah,
And then not making you wrong, back to that thing. When you make yourself wrong for it, then it's just more of the same. It's more you beating yourself up. It's more make wrong.
which doesn't actually
Doesn't help a damn thing that I can see.
it doesn't actually help. It's not actually contributing any energy towards actually turning things back on track, and it's
Right. Only
diminishing.
action.
Yeah, and it's simultaneously diminishing your own power to take action. So
Yeah.
it's actually a double.
And your
It's a
own
double
listening of
negative. Yeah,
yourself. You have a shitty listening, a dumb listening of yourself. Disempowering.
disempowering. Yeah, so you're wasting time and you're making yourself weaker simultaneously.
Yeah, and it's a vicious circle because then you gather more evidence for what a jerk you are, or how you can't, or what a mess it is. And then it just keeps spinning, spinning. And it's funny, it gets bigger and bigger the more it spins.
Right. The mess gets bigger and bigger, and
Yeah.
the more and more you're off track, and then the more time and energy it's going to take to get back on track, and then the weaker
Yeah.
you are. Yeah. So it's, and a lot of
So
people
it's
don't get out of that.
declaration. It's a
Yeah.
declaration. Up with it. I won't put up with this anymore. I won't put up with my life being such a mess anymore. I won't put up with myself being such a, bullshitter. I won't put up with myself being someone who doesn't keep their word.
Yeah.
I won't be someone who uses reasons to not do what I said I would do.
Right. Because if you use reasons to not do what you say you're going to do, by definition, you're then a reasonable person.
Yeah. And no wonder you're never going to get, you're only going to take on reasonable things. You're never going to expand yourself. Your dreams aren't possible if you're reasonable. I mean, I got into college because I was completely unreasonable. I don't care what your rule is. I want to go to your college. You're a left-wing college, and I'm a left-wing kind of guy, and you're accredited, and I want to go. And I didn't follow the rules. I'm not a high school thing, and I'm not taking a GED. I refuse. So they accepted. They did.
Oh my God. That is awesome.
I mean, it was enrollment. Really, enrollment is the key to life.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Well, Captain, this has been an amazing interview. And I know we went a little bit over, but I think the people that listening are definitely going to get a lot out of this interview. And it's been, you've been a huge contribution to me, and I know all the people in the program that we're in, and I just know how much you're going to continue contributing to all the people that you've touched and inspired over the years with your
Thank
story.
you. Thanks. I appreciate the time
All right.
and your interest.
Thank you. All right.
All
Take
right.
care. All right. Till
Thanks.
next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Yes. Bye.